Hey guys, welcome to the Raw Wood series recap. We have compiled all the short videos into one comprehensive video to make it convenient and easy for you to learn. Prepare to witness the transformation power of stripping. This is our first step. Here are the supplies that you're going to need. If you haven't tried the Green Easy Stripper, definitely put it on your list. It's all natural, eco-friendly, and it actually works. Grab a paper plate, a chip brush, and you'll also need some plastic wrap. So I'm just putting on a pretty thick layer. You want to be very liberal with the amount of stripper that you put on because you don't want it to dry out in the process. I think this is the first issue that most people have, is not putting enough on. So don't be afraid to slather it on before putting the plastic wrap around. The plastic wrap has a very key role in this. It keeps it from drying out, which allows you to walk away, even do a couple chores before having to come back. It reminds me of hair processing. I've found that if you allow the products to work their magic, then later on you won't have to work so hard. I usually work in my art studio in my home, so I love that the Green Easy Stripper doesn't have any fumes or dangerous chemicals. Even so, I should have worn gloves. I forgot to wear gloves. Yes, you should wear gloves. Do as I say, not as I do, right? Now I'm just finishing up putting on the stripper and then wrapping it with a plastic wrap. Another pro tip on doing these Jacobean style buffets is to make sure that you look 360 degrees and use a generous amount of product all the way around. This will save you a ton of time later. If you miss a spot, then you're going to have to start the whole process again and strip it, or you're going to have to sand it, which takes more time with all of the curves. Okay, time to do this front little piece. I'm just going to make sure that I get it really good into all those little grooves so that when I come back with my wire brush, it'll be a lot easier to get it fully down to raw wood. Okay, now that it's been sitting here for 30 minutes to an hour, it's time for the next step. Now I'm going to use the Green Easy Finishing Spray. I like to just add a spray nozzle to the bottle and use it full strength. This is a really important step. It not only loosens up the product that's already on there, but it's also going to get the residue off, and it's going to eat away at the stain, the original stain, in order to get that raw wood finish. Instead of using the typical green scrubbies, I like using these thicker white scrubby pads. I feel like they last longer and there's no evidence of green anywhere. I did end up switching to a nylon brush to get into those grooves and also to save my hands because I don't have gloves on. Everything that you need for this project can be found on my website and Amazon link in the description. Now onto one of the trickiest parts of the buffet. It was especially grungy and grimy, so I did grab a bowl of water to rinse in between scrubbing all of that gunk out. I also had to switch to the metal brush in order to get into all those cracks and crevices. When using a wire brush, make sure that it is not scratching the surface of the wood. You want a non-scratch metal brush for any raw wood stripping project. I think we finally got it. I used a shop towel to wipe it down, and now we're gonna just let it dry to see if there's anything I missed. Now on to the last section. I'm going back with my wire brush and my finishing sponge and making sure that I just scrub out all those grooves and getting off all that old stain as well. All that hard work is paying off and it's looking so good. Now that it's all dry, there's still bits of old stain, but nothing our SurfPrep can't handle. Step 2, let's dive into the world of sanding with SurfPrep. I love this new Pro Foam variety pack. It gives you a lot of different things to try out. And you don't even have to use it on SurfPrep Sander. You can actually use it by hand. I use it a lot of times for finish sanding or prep sanding or just a variety of different ways you can use it. So if you have not yet taken the plunge and gotten yourself a SurfPrep Sander, that's okay. I still recommend all the abrasives that they carry. You can see that mine gets used a lot. So if you are ready, I have a 10% discount code that you'll find in the description. So we're gonna add the medium grit 10mm firm Pro Foam to get the legs of this buffet. This is gonna get all the leftover stain and the original lacquer off that we missed with the stripper. And it's not gonna mess with the substrate. If you've been watching, you know I am a fan of hyperspeed tutorials. But for this tutorial, I wanted you to get more of a sense of the thought and care that goes into this step. Sanding is really, really important to get all of the little nooks and crannies, and it does take a good amount of time. If you're like me, you have a whole pile of kinda used paper abrasives. Here's a solution. We can use all of those old abrasives and fold them and then use them for our Jacobean legs. Another thing I like to use is a good old stir stick. This way that you can really get into those grooves without hurting your hands. These papers are gonna get gunked up because of the stripper and the finishing spray that we use. So you're gonna need to manipulate it into a clean area with each swipe. I like to come back from time to time and just use my dusting brush. I have this set aside as a special dusting brush just so I don't use it for anything else. Okay, let's keep going. Now we're gonna move on to some other areas. There's still a little bit of stain left over on the high point, so I'm going to take my SurfPrep and just go over that again with a finer grit foam pad. You might have noticed that I also offset the foam pad in two different directions, on the bottom and then on one of the sides. That way I can get into those grooves really easily. Okay, now that the legs are done, we're going to move on to this section. With the foam pad, this makes this area a breeze. We're going to do those edges and even onto the flat area. Super easy. There were a couple spots that I had to come back and hand sand. Offsetting that pad can make a big difference on that trim. It kept slipping, so now I'm going to go ahead and offset it a little bit, and now it's going to get right in there and be so much easier to get that trim. Now I'm going to offset it again, going the other direction, so that I can really get that bottom section. Coming back with some hand sanding, I couldn't quite get in those corners with the SurfPrep. A little dusty dust, getting all that cleaned up. Okay, here she is, all stripped and sanded. Not too shabby. I already got all the flat surfaces down to raw wood, and now I'm going back over with a 320 finishing sand. This will help prep the wood for our next step, where I teach you how to lighten and brighten those darker woods with a paint wash. Let's get started with step 3. So I did start out with bleach, and then the vinegar is to neutralize the bleach so it stops the process. I love these auto microfiber sponges, and I have a pair of gloves. So this process did work when I used it on the top. I had to do it 4 times though, so about every half an hour I added another layer of bleach. And then after the entire day, I came back, put the vinegar on, and then let that dry fully overnight. Dealing with mismatched woods is a real pain when you're trying to get that raw wood finish. You can see here that unfortunately, even with the same process on the front, the woods just don't match. It has more red tones and would be even darker after sealing. Let's tackle those red tones and get a cohesive look with a paint wash. Here we go. I'm using a 1 to 2 paint to water mixture of Fusion Algonquin for this wash. Do you guys save all your Trader Joe's containers for all your projects? Let's first give it a good mist, and then I go back in to saturate the surface with the paint wash mixture. This is going to allow it to soak into the wood without drying out. Here's a pro tip. Reach for a dark tan color with green undertones to battle those reds. If you go too light, it might leave your wood looking milky and unnatural when it dries. I did have a little bit too much water, so I'm wiping it back and then I'm going to start again. It really doesn't take that much time for it to soak in. So now I'm wiping back the excess, and then I'm going to come back in with a circular motion to make sure that it does not have any streaks. Don't be fooled by the color. After it dries completely, you'll see quite a difference. The carvings were more of a yellow wood, so didn't need as much wash, so I wiped those back before moving on to the drawers. This is the same process as before. You can see that I'm misting here and there just in case it's a little too dry. Coming back in with a shop towel, using that circular motion, rubbing it thoroughly in, and then wiping it back. Make sure that you're using a new shop towel every time to make sure that there's no leftover residue. You can really see a difference with the drawers being dry and the cabinet that I'm working on, and the contrast between the wet wood and the dry wood, and also how it brings it all together with that wash. Do the sides a little different. I did mist it down, but now I'm going to come back and not only go vertical, but I'm also going to go horizontal in a crosshatch motion. This is going to allow it to really get into that wood. Now I'm just going to go back and touch up the framework with my custom color in Wise L Restoration and a little bit of leatherwood just to make it a touch darker. We are almost to the finish line. Our final step in this raw wood series is sealing this beautiful piece. Here we go with our final step number 4. My team of artists have tried lots of different varnishes over raw wood, and Modern Masters Dead Flat Varnish is the one we go back to over and over again. Make sure to give it a good stir before you get started. So I'm going to mist my brush before I always like using a damp brush to start with. It just makes the product move a lot smoother. And I always have it on hand as well, just in case I need a little bit more water. I did notice some streaking. This is because the raw wood is just super dry. For my next drawer, I'm going to do it a little differently. I'm going to pull it out really far, and then I'm going to mist the entire drawer. This will make it way more even across the entire surface and eliminate that streaking. So how do you fix it? Remember, with varnish, the less you mess, the better it'll turn out. Just let it dry, come back, fine sand it, and then do another coat. For these curved cabinet doors, I'm going to go around the perimeter, and then I'm going to lightly brush down, and then I'm going to lightly brush up, and then I'm going to leave it. Because the wood is so dry, I'm going to make sure that I mist the entire surface before putting on product. You really want your brush to just glide across the surface. If your brush starts to drag or feel tacky, I suggest misting your brush really well and moving to another area, letting that other tacky area dry before coming back to fix it. I forgot to tell you about the brush I was using. This is my new favorite brush. It's the Klingon Short Angled brush. It's a little thinner than the Klingon Shorty, which makes it perfect for top coats. And of course, you can find this on my website at ignitefurnishings.co.com. Again, we're going to mist the entire surface. And I like to come in with a significantly loaded brush right in the middle, work my way to the left with short strokes, and work my way to the right. And then I go across the entire section, really long strokes back and forth, and then you leave it. These big buffets, you have to work quickly and make sure that you have enough product to go across the entire section. Oh no, did you see what I just did? I dripped. Then when it was still tacky, I went back over it. So now there's this big blotch on my beautiful buffet. After it dried completely, I did go back and light sand all over, and it did end up being 3 coats of varnish on the top just to make sure it was super smooth and flawless. So why Modern Masters? We love dead flat varnish. It doesn't change the color of the wood, there's no sheen or cloudiness, and you get a strong finish for years of enjoyment. I can't believe it. This is the before, this is where we started, and this is the after. All that hard work paid off. Now that our raw wood series is complete, there are a lot of projects in the works, including paintable wallpaper. But I want to hear from you. What else would you like to learn? Comment with your ideas below. Together we can elevate our furniture and each other. Thanks for watching.